For my paper, I decided to talk about Volkswagen and their emissions scandal. This was an easy topic for me to speak on due to working for Enterprise Rent-A-Car, since I can't seem to stay away from vehicles. Volkswagen is a German automaker that has been in the news recently due to cheating their emissions tests. They cheated these tests by installing defeat devices in their vehicles. These devices allowed their vehicles to trap nitrogen oxides, resulting in saving fuel due to allowing more pollutants to pass through the exhaust. The company's been producing vehicles since 1937, and unfortunately, this is not their first run-in with using defeat devices. Volkswagen previously had issues with using defeat devices in 1974. The Environmental Protection Agency filed a complaint on the company stating that they failed to comply with the Clean Air Act of 1963. The Clean Air Act was developed to keep vehicle emissions to a minimum to protect from polluting our air. So sadly, it seems that Volkswagen did not learn their lesson the first time around. The actions of Volkswagen made it seem as if they cared more about maximizing profits as opposed to being concerned over the pollution of our Earth. As far as ethics go, I believe Volkswagen has a lot of explaining to do. My top 2 questions for Volkswagen executives would be why? Why did they go back to using defeat devices? Why did they believe they wouldn't get caught again? These are questions many consumers and corporations alike had for the automotive giant. It's clear that Volkswagen had the very opposite of a utilitarian approach, since they did not seem to achieve the greatest good or create the least amount of harm. The ethical issues at hand mostly involve executives and their virtue ethics. The decisions that were made within Volkswagen had to do more with personal or internal struggles and what was seen as a priority during that time. The 2 main virtues that are violated within Volkswagen were honesty and compassion. Chief executives at the automotive giant have proven their dishonesty many of times, especially since they tried to cover up the scandal once again. Compassion flew out the door once the defeat devices made their way back into emission testing after 1974. In an article from the BBC, it states that 11 million vehicles using Volkswagen's faulty diesels were sold in the US, Europe, and other parts of the world. Therefore, these vehicles were not located in one remote area. They were located across the world, adding more pollutants to our environment. The emissions released from these 11 million vehicles had the largest impact on public health in Europe. For example, an article from the MIT News explains that researchers estimate 1,200 people in Europe will die early, each losing nearly a decade of their life as a result of excess emissions generated between 2008 and 2015 by affected cars sold in Germany. These emissions cause many people across the world to develop respiratory-related illnesses and diseases. They also developed a number of heart problems from pollution as well. This lack of compassion is potentially killing off a good percentage of population in Europe, those who would have otherwise never had any health issues to begin with. Another failure of Volkswagen involved their corporate social responsibility. Corporate social responsibility is a corporation's ownership of their effects on society, whether that be positive or negative. Many of times, companies use their resources to better the communities and the world around them. Volkswagen seemed to not exercise any kind of corporate social responsibility when dealing with their crisis. If the company was socially responsible, it would have saved the lives of many. Unfortunately, their lack of responsibility will not only be costing the lives of many, but they will also be feeling the effects of this scandal for years to come. These ethical issues were deemed very harmful to our society and the automobile industry. Granted, Volkswagen is not the only vehicle on the road that gives off pollutants into our environment, of course. All automakers could make some improvements on the emission front. But due to the caliber of pollution and how the company did not seem to care about the health and safety of others, that's what makes the situation so much worse. Due to Volkswagen costing themselves a cool $33.4 billion, something had to give. Not only did the company have a negative effect on our environment, but they also tarnished their reputation in the making. Therefore, Volkswagen had to take action in an attempt to save their spot in the automotive industry. Volkswagen responded to the crisis stating that we've totally screwed up, broken the trust of our customers and the public. The corporation pulled the sale of diesel models in the States and is looking into developing zero-emission battery cars. This positive response is a step towards the right direction, although the company should have already been conducting business this way. It's very unfortunate that the scandal had to happen for them to realize the bad they had done. And if they would have never been caught, would this still be going on today? We may never know, but what we do know is that companies tend to make decisions that will optimize their profits, as opposed to making a decision that will do the greatest good. I found Volkswagen's code of conduct to be interesting due to the fact that they violated a good amount of rules they made for themselves and their employees as well. The first component you see when viewing their code of conduct is our responsibility for compliance, which I actually find humorous due to them just completely ignoring this guideline. The code also states that legal action will be taken upon those who fail to comply with these rules that are set in place. I do believe that their updated code of conduct will assist them when making business-related decisions and hopefully keep them on the road to success. I hope Volkswagen will exercise a little more of a utilitarian approach when making business decisions in the future. I believe they'll save much more money this way as well. When will companies learn and start making correct or more ethical decisions to save them from crisis? It's hard to tell, but I believe Volkswagen is headed in the right direction and they'll slowly bounce back from their scandal. Although Volkswagen violated a number of their ethical guidelines, they're making strides to make ends meet. The company is learning to make sure no stone is left unturned before releasing vehicles to the public. They've learned from their mistakes due to how big the mistakes they made were. I believe that their lack of corporate social responsibility will have a negative effect on them for years to come. But as long as they learn from their unethical decisions from 1974 and 2015, I believe Volkswagen will continue to be a successful automaker across the world.